Well, you know him, you love him. You may not be aware of his new job title of official Kentucky football sideline reporter, but Cole Cubelic, it's not formally of SEC Network. You're still with SEC Network. You're kind of doing Kentucky now. You are the man for Kentucky football. Three great facts you've learned about Kentucky football over the past few weeks.
Well, number one would be not going to be on the sideline this week. I'll be in the booth with Tom Hart. So
Wow.
that's a swing and a miss on your part. Thank you for
Wow.
the disrespect. Yes, correct. And looking more and more likely, maybe Kentucky again next week. Cutter Boley, I think, has the skills to make this team better than what people think they can be. The offensive line can still grow a little bit more. Bottom line is they got to have Seth McGowan in a running back. And those aren't really like three factual things that I've learned. But Andres Pete, left tackle, one of the most interesting characters in college football. This guy was recruited off of an Indian reservation, which is pretty amazing to think about. And you hear stories from Mark Stoops or Eric Wolford, his offensive line coach, or his teammates. We talked to Cutter Boley about him a little bit this week, and like one of the most well thought out, like calm human beings, like most interesting humans they've ever met. But get him on the football field and he's ready to rip somebody's head off. So pretty cool kid.
One of the best you've ever seen recruited off an Indian reservation, like top 10 at least?
Well, so Eric Wolford told us a story about when he was recruiting him that he comes and sits down, and it's like basically some kind of a tribal council comes in and sits down with him. And he was like, you had like multiple chiefs that came in, and he's like, it is the only time that I have been legitimately intimidated during a recruiting process. He said, because I had to sell all of them on him coming to play football for us.
Oh.
And talked to Mark Stoops about it a little bit this week. And I said, the blueprint for that, not, he's like, he just laughed and he's like, no blueprint for recruiting that young man at all. But they're happy to have him. Really cool. I talked to him the last time we had him, and just an awesome kid. Like, reads books, always asking. Like Bush Hamden, the offensive coordinator, said that he was walking by the hall the other day and he said, what's the last book you read? And Bush just laughed. He's like, dude, I'm coaching football. I don't have time to read books right now. Like, what are you talking about? But that's just kind of kid he is. So it's a pretty cool story.
That is shockingly similar in description to how the LSU coaching search is going down right now. Tribal councils, circular meetings, dark room, really no blueprint for it. So you and I normally just sit here and ramble
about the
on.
dark rooms. They're just having press conferences calling each other out.
Yeah.
Telling everybody what they're going to do and not going to be able to do.
Which is frankly how it used to be done and how it should still be done, in my opinion. Money ruins things. Money like calibrates things. Money should have the opposite effect. Money should make you go full Wild West. It did once upon a time. We got great movies out of it in America. It should be that way again. Normally, when you come on the show, we may or may not have texted earlier in the day about one or two things we may or may not hit, but largely we just ramble, sometimes coherently. Today, though, I thought maybe a little structure. So we're at the dawn of November right now. It's going to be November by the time the games are played this weekend. What I wanted us to do is picture the things that would be the most shocking but somewhat believable that could take place over the next month of the season. So I'm going to float you one. And my first one, and I just want you to react, like scale of 1 to 10, how shocking would this be to you, is everyone is just misreading Lane Kiffin. It's either he's going to take the Florida job. If he doesn't take the Florida job, it'll be because he took the LSU job. Those are definitively better jobs. I've seen reporting out there that everyone would be, well, many people would be shocked if he stayed at Ole Miss. And number one, I'm not quite sure people know how good he has it at Ole Miss or how good the infrastructure is at Ole Miss right now. But forget about what everyone else knows. Forget about what you and I know. It matters what that guy thinks. How much, scale of 1 to 10, are you shocked if he's just still there when all this dust settles?
5.5 on the Pate meter scale.
Yeah, because I went 5 3/4, so that's interesting. You can go quarter point
there
here.
There you
now.
go. I don't think I would be totally shocked. Now, we're going to look at these jobs and say, guys, that's Florida. Guys, that's LSU. And that's fair. It's totally fair. But we saw Lane knocking on the door of the playoff last year. It looks as though he's in this year. That would be one thing that I would be shocked about, is if Ole Miss actually doesn't make the 12-team playoff this year based on what they've already done, the resume they have, and then what lies in front of them. He's also proven that his style of recruiting is very conducive for today's college football. He's also proven that can work at Ole Miss. He revamped the entire receiver room. He had a first-round quarterback leave. He had multiple guys drafted early not just on defense, but along his defensive front seven, and one of the best corners off the board in the draft. And the defense hasn't taken a big step back. I think he has the staff put together that he wants, that he likes, that he thinks he can go win with. And he's got the people behind him to be able to play today's college football game when it comes to putting your roster together. I imagine not a lot of people mess with him over there. I imagine Keith Carter probably goes out of his way to make sure Lane has what he wants, gets what he wants. And it would be tough for me to imagine you leaving a situation like that. Believe it or not, I actually said that last time around. I actually laid out in the middle of a game how good he has it at Ole Miss right now and what he's done. And then other people's words wanted to be misconstrued and forced on me, still are today. But nonetheless, Josh, I would not be completely shocked if this is actually a bad game, because I say all the time, nothing in college football shocks me anymore, but I'll play along.
Yeah. Have we ever done an Ole Miss segment on the show that you didn't twist around into being about you, by the way? Has that ever happened? Will it ever happen?
No, because I think we just did our first Ole Miss segment on your show. So
Good call. All right, try and shock me. Hit me with something.
This one's out there now. I mean, stick with me. Maybe I should scale it down to 2, but I'm going to stick with 3. Florida, the Gators knock off 3 ranked opponents the rest of the way through.
Oh, no.
So, Jesse, if you don't mind, if you can get the Florida schedule up there for us in the corner.
So, we got Georgia this weekend. That's got to happen. What else?
So Florida's going to do it. They're going to be at Kentucky. That wouldn't count as a ranked win. At Ole Miss, Tennessee, then Florida State. So they'd be getting Georgia, Ole Miss, and Tennessee, which if you listened to our broadcast last week, Tennessee was up by 40 at this point. So I'm not sure why you would have still been tuned in, but we went through the schedule moving ahead for Tennessee. And I kind of stepped out away from everybody else and said, I think Florida is the most difficult team remaining on their schedule. Now, if you're just talking stylistically, personnel, still probably Vanderbilt, especially the way they're playing as a team. But Florida being the week before that game for Tennessee in Gainesville with possibly a little bit of look ahead, that one bothers me for the Tennessee Volunteers. And I just say styles make fights here. The stretch play in the run game would have to go for Florida. Jaden Ball, Jacoby Jackson would have to be getting the ball going on the ground. We don't know exactly what Russ Callaway is going to do with the offense, how it's going to be different. It won't be exactly the same. So what are your tendencies that you're looking for here from a Georgia perspective? Do you know inside the red zone on 3rd down from the left hash what they like to call? You don't. So DJ Lagway would need to protect the football as well if that took place. A couple of those disruptors up front defensively, which I think Florida has a handful of, are going to need to be problematic. So I just look at stylistically, specifically for Ole Miss and Tennessee, how they can slow that game down. They can limit the possessions of those 2 football teams and be problematic that way. And then those are the Ole Miss offensive line, not as good as the Tennessee's, but how the Tennessee offensive line functions with slide protection, gap protection, which we talked about on Cube Show this week. They have the ability to penetrate, disrupt, and cause problems there. So a lot would have to go their way. But with a week off before Georgia, you have some inherent advantages there. Should be healthier and should be able to hide some things that you hadn't run yet this year. That's one that I ask you, how much would it shock you if Florida actually pulled it off?
Doing all 3 of them, it would be like a 9.5 on the shocked scale. However, any individual game there, we talked about this. We wrote the game down earlier on the show tonight. They're playing Georgia. I think the huge differentiator when you look at conference versus conference right now is look at Ohio State and the gap between them and Penn State, and look at the gap between Georgia and Florida. One of those lines is 3 touchdowns. One of those lines is 1 touchdown. And so, I mean, that's the big disruptor piece. That's the thing I think that stands out about the SEC right now when you get past the top layer of either of those conferences is if I'm going, how deep I have to go in the SEC in the standings to get to Florida, I'm probably getting towards like Michigan State, Rutgers, whatnot in the Big Ten. There just is no DJ Lagway there. There is no athletic profile there. It's the same way with watching Bama play South Carolina last week. South Carolina, not a good team. South Carolina may have had the 3 best athletes on the field because you got Harbor out there. You got Dylan Stewart out there. You got Lenora Sellers. Ole Miss has got to deal with that team this weekend. This would greatly surprise me. It would mildly shock me. It would not totally – that's a good one. It would not totally shock me.
What about 2? What about 2? Where would 2 be on the shock scale?
2 would be like a 7.75 or an 8. I
Yeah, I
would
was
be
going to
more
go
surprised.
6-5, 7-ish.
It's so this weekend, I don't even need the whole game. Like, just show me how they play in the first half this weekend. If you were to guarantee me they're still checked in, just guarantee, I don't need anything else. I don't need a guarantee of health or anything. Just tell me they're checked in, and I'm going to get them in November, whatever their fastball is. Yeah, I could see that. I got one for you. So, right now, compared to those two conferences we just mentioned, the ACC's been pretty inferior as a league this year. I think most people would agree. What would you say if I told you they get 3 teams in the playoff?
I don't think that I would be completely shocked because I already feel like right now Georgia Tech has a great chance of getting in. Miami has a great chance to get in. I'm going to have to cheat a little bit here and just kind of look. I mean, the third team that's going to sneak in, if you are projecting right now, are you going Louisville will be the team that sneaks in and is next in line?
Wow, you just forget about
Just for
Virginia? Virginia just doesn't exist to you?
Actually, I think Virginia has a very difficult game this weekend, to be honest with you. After playing 3, maybe 4 close games in a row at North Carolina, then now they got to go to Cal for an earlier kick. I don't like them in that game at all. I actually think Cal wins that game with good quarterback play and then taking advantage of a team that had to travel. You're looking at Duke a little bit later in the year. Massive rivalry game, which the trinket that they play for, I do not know. Virginia and Virginia Tech at the end of the season, but we know you don't just walk into that game and feel like you're going to get a win ever, even when the coach has been fired. So I think Virginia's a little bit one-dimensional. I don't like their makeup as much as I do even Louisville's, honestly, because I think Louisville has more guys that can take over a game up front on defense. So I would tell you that I was surprised, but not totally surprised. Here's the problem with conversations like this, whether we're talking, does the Big Ten extend past where everybody thinks they are? Is the SEC going to be less than what everybody thinks they are? Does the ACC go forward one? It's so dependent on those other leagues and who steps up and who falls off. We're going to get upsets, Josh. Like, this is the perfect weekend. You and I talked about this earlier today. No one's making a big deal out of a lot of games this weekend. Nobody's saying, oh, I can't wait to watch that one. Better pay attention to this one. Watch out for that game. This is when it all goes to hell in a handbasket. Normally, like the last 3 or 4 years, we've had this weekend where everybody was about to sleepwalk through it, and all of a sudden mayhem, just complete plane nosedives into the field, and we don't know what's going on. So this is going to be one of those weekends. I think we're going to get a couple we're not expecting, and it's only going to get worse through the regular portion of the season because we're going to have more injuries and more guys are going to be dinged up, and we don't have near the depth to help these teams get through the last month of the season that we expect them to.
All due respect to the Commonwealth Cup, a game in which you're right. You can't just walk in and expect to win. You mentioned it depends.
But is
on
it an actual cup that they play for? I haven't seen
is
it.
The chalice an actual chalice? Actually, yes, it is. But it doesn't matter. It matters here. Now, I say that, and there is a statue of a pig behind me. So some of these trophies obviously do exist. Others exist in your heart, in your memory. It's like the necklace in Titanic, or Jack himself. It exists now only in our memory. What was I about to say?
I'll say 7 on the surprise scale.
Yes,
7.
That's a 7? 3 in is only a 7?
7.5.
Oh, it's at least an 8. It's at least an 8. But back to your point.
It's dependent on so many other teams, though. Like it could easily happen.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But if I were sitting in the Big Ten's chair right now, or I were sitting in the SEC's chair, you at least have to admit, as crazy as it is right now, first week of November, our fate depends on them too. Like, here's what I'm trying to imagine. We all know that a Virginia at 11-1 is not a comparable team. At least I think we know. Quality of team would not measure up. We would have to go with the whole hypothetical point spread to prove our point. They'd be double-digit dogs against anyone. Don't even want to wade into those waters yet. What I'm asking is, if the committee really does just have it stare them in the face. So here would be the scenario for anyone listening at home. Virginia's a one-loss team right now. Somehow they're undefeated in conference play, even though their loss is to a team in their conference. Don't ask me to make sense of it. It just is what it is. Virginia wins out. They go to Charlotte. They win the ACC title game. They're in. Georgia Tech wins out. They go to Charlotte and lose. Georgia Tech at that point would be undefeated, way inside the top 10 going into their conference championship game. They will have beaten Georgia en route to Charlotte in a non-conference game. So Georgia Tech would be in. Like, I don't know how the committee looks at either of them and says they're out. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Bradley, if you got Louisville's schedule for me, and there he does, boom. Look at this. Louisville, if they just went out, they would have wins over Miami already. They'd have a win against Clemson coming up at SMU. Now, they wouldn't go to Charlotte. Are they going to tell 11-1 Louisville they're not in? I don't think they would. So Louisville would be in. And we've gotten 3 deep there, and we have not mentioned Miami. And believe it or not, no one in the ACC actually plays each other. So Miami could also win out, and they could be 11-1. This is a nightmare for the SEC. It's a nightmare for Notre Dame because Notre Dame would fall off in the head-to-head comparison against Miami because Miami would get the heads-up slot against them, plus they'd have 1 fewer losses. So as much as, yeah, the ACC's fate rests on what happens in these other conferences, here's what I'm asking you, and this is the scenario. Let's say no matter what happens in these other conferences, I've got a 1-loss conference champ Virginia, I've got a 1-loss conference champ runner-up in Georgia Tech, I got an 11-1 Louisville with quality wins, I got an 11-1 Miami with quality wins. Regardless of what happened elsewhere, do they have the stones on that committee to look at one or more of those teams with those resumes and say, sorry, you're not good enough, we don't have room for you here? Hey, really quick timeout. We'll get right back to the video. Do me one favor. Make sure you're subscribed. It helps us keep the show free. It helps us keep the lights on. It helps us keep doing college football year-round, and we appreciate it. All right, back to the video.
Are you now asking me about 4 getting in? Which, by the way, I just want to, let me rewind here. By showing the smoothly paved 4-lane interstates that those teams have the rest of the way, I feel like you just made my argument that this is not an 8 or a 9 on the surprise scale, that this could more easily happen than a lot of people believe.
You don't even see the black ice ahead. You don't even see that on the road because you've been used to hot weather. You've been complaining about 80 degrees at kickoff. You can't see the black ice. You live in Birmingham. You are privileged. You don't understand how this stuff works in November.
I'm not going to say, regardless of what happened in those leagues, that 4 would get in at that point. The difficulty comes, and this is where, similar to Florida State a couple of years ago, we are going to have full rage from one fan base, be it Louisville or Miami, who would not get in if both of those teams were there, specifically if the team with the head-to-head win did not get in. But you tell me, at that point, some of this still depending on what happens, who has the better resume, Miami or Louisville right then? You got to win over Notre Dame. You got to win over South Florida. You beat Florida, who's not a great football team, but it's an SEC win. You're going to get credit for that. This may come down to, if that were to happen and one of those two needed to be picked, because I'm with you, Virginia obviously in. Georgia Tech runs the regular season. I don't care what happens after that. They're in. Mm-hmm. You are in 100% with that win against Georgia in the last game of the season. Done. Over. So then we pick between these two if that scenario plays out. I wonder who they would look at as having the stronger finish, because it's a little bit of a coin toss here. When you look at these two schedules down the way, I actually might lean Miami just a little bit more with the game at SMU, at Virginia Tech. By the way, that game at Pitt terrifies me if I'm a Hurricane fan right now, that late in the season. I do not like that with a defensive line that's active and a quality quarterback. But I don't know who's going to gain more points with the committee on the way out here. Now, you get an SEC opponent if you're Louisville. It's not a good Kentucky team, but you at least get that to sort of hang your hat on. At VTech, not great. Cal win would be nice. Clemson's still going to make people happy. People on that committee are still going to say, oh, but they beat Dabo. And then you're at SMU. So I don't know if you could really go one way or the other as to who has the stronger finish, but maybe it's who wins more points with this committee for the next month. Or then does it just come down to the head-to-head and they say, you know what, we'll make this real easy. That team beat that team, they're in.
I don't think there's any path where if both of them have one loss, Miami's resume can be definitively better than Louisville's at this point to where the head-to-head doesn't get drawn in. Like, that's the whole rule, right? When McElroy and those guys sit around the desk and they all go over the bylaws that are guarded with lock and key, they say the only time head-to-head doesn't matter is if someone's unequivocally better than someone else. And if they're not, then the head-to-head comes in. And by the way, the head-to-head was on Miami's home field. So coming off a bye, not that that matters, but there's no excuse. Like, if it comes down to comparable Miami-Louisville, Louisville's got to get the nod. I don't know how they don't.
If they don't, we riot. And I think rightfully so. I mean, we beat you.
Yeah.
Like, you can make the argument of, if this team's unequivocally better, well, hold on a second. Check score. are.
Hmm.
We're done here. There's no more debate. Like, I saw the scoreboard. We have photographic and actually video evidence of it that we beat you. Nothing else should be discussed at this point. We're good.
You have an opportunity right now to just enrage not the entire state of Texas, Longhorn Nation. Because you got a little scenario. It's not that you're predicting it, and let's make sure we caveat this. This certainly is not your prediction. However, this is a crazy world in whence we live. It is November, longest month of the college football year. What do you think could happen to Texas? Spoiler alert.
I do think we need to like triple asterisk these with we're not predicting these, similar to the Florida discussion earlier. We don't saying we think that's going to happen, but if it did, how much would it shock you, Josh, if Texas won one more game the rest of the season? You didn't have to throw it.
Yeah, I didn't.
But
Vandy loss. All right,
that would be Vandy at home.
A&M at the end of the year loss.
At Georgia after Vandy.
Oh, buddy.
And then Arkansas would be your other game, which I would be giving you the win for there. I think the wrong team's favored this weekend. I'm not afraid to say that.
You're wrong.
I think Vanderbilt is a better football team in my mind. At Georgia, I think we not only know that mentally and emotionally how Georgia has handled that football team, but physically what's happened. And this is not a more physical Texas football team than it was a year ago,
right?
Which Georgia, not more physical than they were a year ago either, but I would give Georgia the advantage in that game. Arkansas is going to have meaning for a lot of different reasons, for a lot of different people, but I don't see a lot of stops in Arkansas's future in that game. And then Texas A&M looks like one of the best two football teams in America right now. I think that the matchup stylistically between those two, you find very little ways to convince yourself that Texas was going to win that football game. So on the meter o shock, where would you have it fall if I told you Texas was going to win one more game this season?
When you floated this to me earlier today, I thought it was going to be a 9 or higher in my head. I think it's like a 8. I mean, if they lose this weekend, snowballs kick down the hill. So if they lose and you, erroneously, but you claim the wrong team's favored this weekend, but if you're right, on the off chance that you're right, then it becomes a 2 out of 3 thing. And Georgia, I cannot count on Texas. Psychologically, I don't even need to know about the matchup. Just from the neck up, I can't count on them to go in there and do that. Plus, you are of the opinion, and I agree with you, Georgia could be one of those get hot at the right time type candidate teams here in November.
Yep.
So I'm gonna ride with you there. A&M, you saw what they just did. You saw what they did to LSU in their home building. I don't care that they go into Darrell Royal Field. I don't care about that. So, yeah, that Arkansas game there. I think you may be onto something here, and I don't like it because I picked Texas to win this weekend. I don't love this, but I do think this actually doesn't shock me. And then there's all kind of uncomfortable conversation. We just copy and paste the Ryan Day conversation last year to Sark, only Sark doesn't get to go and get a redo in the playoff because they wouldn't be anywhere near the playoff.
No, and I think those conversations would be erroneous, honestly, because you're just not going to be an elite team at the top of college football every year with how this sport is situated right now. It's not possible to go do that each and every year. Sark's recruited at a high level. He's had people come in, play at a high level. He's had teams in the postseason, but if certain things didn't work out this year, I don't think you begin those conversations. Not me, at least. I'm not going to.
I'm going to give you one more here as we head out of here. The Big Ten only getting 2 teams in the playoff. 1 to 10 shot meter.
I'm going to give you an 8 only because it's the Big Ten. And I think we just assume, and you and I have had this discussion multiple times about our old school college football brains and how it's really taken a long time for some of that to change and morph and be different. We all look at the Big Ten and the SEC as just running college football, and there are multiple meanings to that even. Indiana's in. I feel like Ohio State's in. I don't know what would have to happen exactly to Oregon to not get in. I don't think that there's really another team that we would look at there and say, okay, I realistically see a path for you to probably find your way in with what lies ahead and with what kind of a football team they've looked like this season. But to see those 3 in, I would say absolutely 2 would just be, I don't think that it'd be a 10 out of 10 on the shock meter if only 2 got in.
Yeah.
And if you're telling me 3 are going to get in, I would say likely, but I don't know if I could sit here and look at this and say that there's a lot of other teams that I have a lot of confidence in. But we just expect the SEC Big Ten are going to, what was the majority of our offseason conversation? That these conferences wanted, what, 4 automatic bids every year?
Yep.
5 automatic bids every year? So that's where I think a lot of our brains are, is just that the other leagues aren't even close. Their teams can't keep up. They're not going to be able to keep up with these 2 leagues. Therefore, by default, the Big Ten and SEC are going to have 3 in, and then just take your picks of the maybes with the 5 or 6 other teams that we think should get in, but probably won't because somebody goes undefeated in a lesser conference.
Yeah, I'll float you that. So firstly, I mean, I know a lot of you need tickets this weekend. A lot of you are going to games this weekend. Just make sure, if you're paying the money already, just make sure you save a little bit. I mean, we're fans of money here. Don't love it, but like to have more of it. SeatGeek can help you out. If you're going to buy the tickets off the secondary market, if you're not already a season ticket holder, go there. Purchase your tickets, do what you would normally do. Just make sure that little promo code box there at the end, PATE10, PATE10. That's going to get you 10% off any order $200 or less, and just $20 off any order $200 or more. Now, if you're going to check out Kent State, you may not have to spend $200. Kent's been rolling. They're our adopted team. If you're going to the Texas Vandy game, look, man, Texas fans, I'm told every one of you are wealthy beyond measure. But on the off chance that you're not, and you're looking to save some money, SeatGeek, Pate10 at checkout. So he's dumped out on us. Anyway, what I was talking about with that, as we wrap up here, Cubelic bailed on us. As I was talking about, here's the Big Ten thing. I was thinking to myself, Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon. That's just how I always hear that Big Ten echo in my head. That's what rattles around. Ohio State's going to make this playoff. I got virtually no doubt about that. I cannot see Indiana dropping off. I suppose it could happen, but you'd be really hard-pressed to convince me that Cignetti's throwing 104 on the black right now. I really have trouble envisioning them lose their fastball this late in the year. Could happen. It's what November's for. The Oregon example is the one. I still believe in Oregon, but if there is one out there that's a pretend contender, it would be Oregon. And they got to go to Minnesota still, or they got to go to Iowa still. And Iowa's sitting there. They're coming off a bye. Like, Iowa's got a couple of losses that are pretty close. We got them ranked. JP Poll has them top 25. They've also got USC, second to last week of the year. And it's in Autzen, but so was the Indiana game. And they got to go to Washington. I just kind of skipped over Minnesota there. Like, legitimately, there are 4 losable games left. Every game Oregon plays is losable. They could also buzzsaw all 4 of them, at which point this is a moot point. But I'm just saying, if Oregon doesn't make it in, then he just missed all of my point. But trust me, I just made great points there. Ohio State, I'm going to count them in. Indiana, I got a hard time seeing them miss out. But, sir, we just looked at the Oregon schedule, and we know they got to go to Iowa next weekend. They got Minnesota at home. They got USC at home. Then they go to Washington. And you know, it's right now it's a slam dunk 3 teams for me in the Big Ten, but Oregon's the one where after that Indiana result in Autzen, I think it's kind of got a lot of people with a yellow caution light around Oregon's team right now. Now, I look at it the opposite. I say, man, they went wire to wire last year, and they didn't really taste that blood until it was too late in the playoff. Maybe tasting it early in the season yields dividends for them. But that still involves them executing and winning the games. But my point is, if they stumble a couple more times and they got 4 losable games left, you're looking at Ohio State, you're looking at Indiana, and you're looking at a great big question mark past that in the Big Ten right now, because I think there's such separation, like there's such fall off after those top 3 teams.
I think you probably changed my believability rate with this when you went through that end of that schedule. And even though you may think the chances of that happening, be it 1 or 2 more losses for Oregon, are a little bit less than mine, I've gotten a little bit more on board with you. And more so situationally, having those teams back to back to back, having to go to Iowa is one at this time of the year that I don't like for Oregon really at all. I do think USC offensively can keep up with Oregon. And I think at Washington, we all know one of the most difficult places to play in all of college football. It's two programs that are familiar with one another. And I have confidence Jed Fish putting a game plan together for a big game like that. I'll give him some advantage. It's not saying he has all of them against Dan Lanning and his staff, but that's a treacherous run the rest of the way through. Specifically, Josh, because not a lot of people nationally, I think, are going to make a ton of noise about those games individually. So how many guys are going to be put on warning themselves by reading what people are saying, people picking them to lose those games, people saying that those are going to be more difficult games than maybe other folks imagine. They might not have to hear a lot of that, deal with a lot of that. So you take a little extra confidence in than you should. But that's a tough road the rest of the way through. I think they manage it. I think they get through it just because, like you said, they understand now mistakes that were made. Also think just the talent level can take over in a couple of those games, as we've stated with other games like South Carolina and Alabama, maybe this Texas game against Vanderbilt. Oregon's going to have takeover players that can go dominate certain facets of those games they're going to play. But stylistically, they're going to be very careful with, I think, not getting to a shootout with USC, not letting Iowa slow that game down too much to where it limits their possessions, where 2 punts and a turnover all of a sudden puts you on red alert late third quarter that you're going to have to go get 2 scores to win that game. So I think styles make fights, and stylistically, those are games that Oregon has to be really careful with the rest of the way through.
Yep. All right, I'm 3/4 of the way convinced you only hopped back on the feed to plug Cube Show, but it's worthy of being plugged. So I would encourage people. I see complaints all the time. Not enough quality college football shows out there. Well, stop looking in the same places you always look and listen to the next 45 seconds, because that's what I'm giving you right now, 45 seconds, and then we both need to go to plug Cube Show. Go.
Well, we talk all the SEC games, we watch the film, and we take you through what we saw. It's just that simple. I don't feel like you get that a lot of other places, and the details in which things take place. Like take, for example, pull protection from Tennessee, which we were made aware by Joey Halsley, was their entire offseason project, and told us about all the effort and everything that went into it. And then what do you know? The first 4 touchdowns of the game against Kentucky came on pull protection. I'll explain to you why that's important, what our conversations were like, and even show you a play of how it happened. So if you're not into that, go somewhere else.
But if you know ball, or you long to know ball, Cube Show, the way to go. Appreciate it as always,
And I came
sir.
back because I like you. So I didn't just come back for that. We're not going to grow. It's okay. We're just going to be a little measly show in the corner. We're the Dabo of college football podcast.
You got a home game this weekend, though. You get to ride in a car to your game, so that's a blessing.
That is.
There you go.
Thankfully not with you.
There you go. All right, Cole Cubelic.